Thank you very much. I think from this parity era, some key things that have come out, we said there's need for inclusive constitutional review, as well as basically looking at our value system as a nation and seeing how the private sector, not just government, can help, cause that change. And talking about the private sector, like he also mentioned, we also look at how the family plays a role. So the private sector as well as individuals playing the role to help improve the value system of this country. Thank you very much. I would want us to, and as well as, we spoke about strengthening the media, which is part of, the focus of that first priority area. So these things, I believe with this, basically our first priority area, we can work towards it to make it, stronger to reflect these changes. So now we would go to the second priority. Okay. Even though I said I would close, I might not have a job if I don't give her the microphone. So I think I don't have a choice.
I'm sure it's not that intense. But the more we talk about, I listen and I hear things like we don't have a media and we have to, build capacity or help the media. And I look at the history, again, some disclosure because I have a stint of media in my existence. And I look at the history of how the media has actually fought through at various times, even when we had the military, situations where journalists have been killed, for just doing their jobs, and played critical, roles in making things happen. I think we should be looking at, when we say we need to strengthen the media, I think we also need to articulate how do we get this done. It's something that we need to think about.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We would now be moving on to the second priority area. And I would start with Dr. Toki for this, her reaction on capacity development and civic education. Capacity development for government officials and looking at civic education for the citizenry. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So just to contextualize my comment, my background is very similar to Dr. Abba's, being a lawyer and also having spent 10 years in civil service. So it's to say that even as far back as when I worked in the civil service years ago, 10 years, things had already started to go awry. And where it started was systemic. So what has happened now is there's just 10 times worse. So inductions that used to take place no longer take place. Interministerial committees that were as common as anything. So 2 years out of law school, something that had legal impact was being done maybe by the Ministry of Education or by Power or something. There would be a ministerial committee on which us civil servants would sit and discuss its implications, consult. All those things have stopped and sort of was erased through the sort of 30 years of military rule. But where we are is that instead of this interministerial engagement, we have essays upon essays upon essays dealing with very small and limited topics, and it doesn't help, right? So we need to look at the system, the public service system, because like Joe said, sometimes it's not necessary that they don't know. What the public service needs to deal with is very different from what private sector needs to look at. So the strengthening there is not just a replication of all kinds of training, but how do we strengthen that system and make it work for us so that we strengthen the democracy that we have? My second comment has to do with the civic education and actually saying that, there are a lot of, and I think Joe made reference to that, and maybe Chairman, there are a lot of CSOs, NGOs that are in this space. And I'm thinking that we really need to make use of what they're doing. So I think of Enough is Enough that actually has the Office of the Citizen, and so much work has been done around that. So we really need to be inclusive in how we address this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Toki. Over to you.
I'm a millennial and I used to be a teacher, so I will speak more from a youth perspective. I think it's a bit harsh to say that youth are lacking values when I had children who couldn't come to school because their mom was at work and they had to watch their younger child or their younger sibling. Or people can't get a bus to school because the bus broke down and there's not another bus. So I think it's hard to talk about lofty, I don't want to say lofty, but higher goals of ethics and values that we all have because of our background when you have someone who is struggling to eat every day and that's their main priority, or their road to get to school isn't functioning. And I think, so when you speak of these higher level goals, you can't meet those without meeting the bottom ones. And so when it comes to capacity and civic education and developing those, I think we also have to think back to your idea of a contract. Like what are citizens getting from their government? And I think it's hard for a citizen to see that when their street has potholes. And it also goes back to the point of democracy and development. There's an argument of, does democracy lead to development or does development lead to democracy? And so when you have an infrastructure that isn't as good as it could be, how are you thinking about anti-corruption or electoral bodies when you can't even get to your voting place?
Thank you very much, Brittany, and thank you, Dr. Toki, for these things. You know, one of the things I always say when I speak about the NADS, especially to public sector officials, is to say one of the things we're doing is we're not being prescriptive, because a lot of times it's easy for the private sector to say you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. We're not being prescriptive, but we're actually looking at how we can solve the problem with them, with the public sector. So looking at the needs, what are those specifics, the considerations from their own side, and to be able to look at it. And thank you, Brittany. You know, you just go back to the point that whenever you think about you're trying to solve one problem, you have like 50 others that you look into, say, how do we plug this? I would go back to my steering committee. I don't know if you want to respond to that before I go back to the House.
Okay, let me start with the need to be inclusive of civil society and say I agree entirely with that. Civil society does a lot of good work. There's the Office of the Citizen that you've talked about that Enough is Enough does. Just yesterday, CIPE held a convening of an ethics first approach to private sector work, which was very, very good. The Accountability Lab has what it calls integrity champions, where it actually gets the head of service of the Federation to come and give awards to public servants who have shunned bribery and corruption in their work. So we need to integrate this a bit more, a bit better. Yes, I agree that it does add value. Does democracy lead to development? We know that it doesn't. Otherwise, every democracy will be developed. So, but we know that virtually every, maybe apart from a few, know that virtually every developed society practices democracy. But is democracy a cause of development? That is not easy to argue. I think the main point you were making is that people need to show workings, as we say in Nigeria. You need to show workings. You know, you can't just come and preach to me about ethics and values when I cannot relate it to my own personal life. So people are asking me, oh, you know, Joe, you've been in government. How did you manage to come out after 4 years with no stain? And I said, because I had money before I went into government. And my wife was basically subsidizing my government posts. There was no way I was going to live on 895,000 a month, being that I was earning 9 million a month at the time, if I didn't have reserves and I didn't have a wife who could subsidize it. So we need to be realistic about these things. You know, when people are facing existential threats. They can't eat, they can't transport themselves, they can't pay for medicines for their sick parents, and they have an opportunity for those issues. They will take those opportunities, you know. So we need to be mindful of that and advocate that you know, people are remunerated in a way that they can at least live a decent life. Toki started by asking how we strengthen the system in the public service. I say it everywhere I go that the Nigerian public service will improve the day the politicians want it to improve. You know, so the politicians have systematically weakened the public service for their own purposes. But having said that, again, it's easy to just blame it on everyone else. There's been very good examples of where people who have been intentional have actually swum against the tide successfully and made a difference and put in those systems, at least within their own spans of control. And that's what we need to encourage. So the bigger problem is there, but within your area of control, you've talked about the inductions, for instance. There's no reason why we cannot engage with the heads of service to make sure that the inductions are brought back, to make sure that the comprehensive promotion exams are brought back, the interministerial committees are brought back. When I worked as DG, I did have advisors paid for by donors, but I made a rule that no advisor was allowed to report to me directly. You must go through the civil servant director, and your director should come and tell me what it is you want to say as a consultant and an advisor. What that meant was, A, it reduced the arrogance of the young guy from the private sector that thinks he knows everything and nobody else knows anything. It ensured that the director, the civil servant, owned and believed in what it was they were going to say before they came to me. And it had this benefit of cross-fertilization of experience and ideas. So some of those things we can actually promote. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abba. Reactions, please. Thank you. Just introduce yourself.
Good morning, all. My name is Tony Okunta, the MD of Real Advertising Services Limited. Talking about capacity building in the civil service, I have serious concern in what we're having these days. There's seriously lack of professionalism. One, because the politicians have actually taken control. You discover that from the level of employment, we begin to have charlatans because the politicians bring in their people. Most of the people at the helm of affair, the civil servants, the career civil servants, most times are not having even say in employment. And I think that is something that is very fundamental that must be addressed. Because if we don't recruit the right people, then how do we expect to get the best? Those days in the civil service, we used to have the best brain. And we used to have what they call training school, that we groom people from different levels in the civil service so as to increase efficiency. But we're not having that now. And most of us, when we encounter even the professionals coming to present certain things, you feel sad. You begin to ask them, are you an accountant? How can you present this? How can you make this request? Because it is the civil servants or professionals are supposed to educate the politicians. So you begin to observe that generally the value is eroding on a continuous basis. So most of you people are still in the civil service. It's a very serious concern, and we need to address it. Even in revenue, this revenue generation and all, you see so many things that are even against the law being done. and nobody is questioning it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. One of the things, the recommendations in the NADS talks about the recruitment process of the public sector officers. So that's also something that we have put, and see how, you know, they can be, that can be supported for them to do, just like the private sector gives the best. I believe you want to speak. Hold on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ime and I work with BD Foundation. Now, talking about the civic education, or we talk about the different things that happen in sectors, I think that we can't, everyone has spoken about, you know, what the family does, what office, what the workplace should do. I think everyone has a role to play. So if, for instance, a child misses the kinds of value they should get from home, because, as you know, personally, and apologies to those that work with the banks here, personally, I wouldn't want to hire someone who has both parents working in a bank, and that's a disaster. Because you know the work ethics. The parents are not there, so they are brought up by maids, possibly. So if a child, for instance, misses that, I think the school should be the place where they can get, you know, something that is like that. And then when people miss it even from school, I think workplace culture, workplace policies, and so on should then be able to help. And if you don't get it from the workplace, the professional organizations should be able to do that. So you see, it's not the function of any one person. But I listened quite interestingly. Everyone was talking about the media. And yes, so the media has its issues. But guess what? It's a reflection of us all. Because if you don't give, no one will take. And many times it's a bargain. So people, you know, when I've discovered when people want things, they always want things so desperately that they are willing to give anything just to get what they want. And that's what a person that intends to take advantage of you would capitalize on, because you want it desperately. If someone says they want XYZ and you don't want to give, simply say, no thanks. If we make this a culture, I think that it reduces the incidences that you have. It might not eradicate it totally, but there is a message that we need to drill down. And let's not assume that all adults are good people. Everyone over 40 is a very good gentleman or woman. That is too naive. I mean, we had it over everyone over 40. That's not true. I've sat with schools trust councils before, and you'll be amazed. I call them delinquent parents. You'll be amazed at what you hear. So let's not assume every parent even knows what to give the children. It's you know, the society must just know how to self-correct in some way. And so people should have options where to get. If you miss it here, you find it here, you know, and so on. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Imem. What I hear you say is that this thing of building values should be everywhere in the society, from the beginning, so continuously, even to the workplace. So we don't we don't just say it should be done at this stage, it should be continuous. Thank you very much. I'm just trying, we're running, bad with time, so I'm trying to cut everything short. Please, if you have comments, I'll be here after this meeting, so please see me afterwards. I'm going to go to priority 3 right now, which is corruption and private sector accountability. So this is priority area is about resilience against corruption and private sector. So this focuses on private sector. So I would start, Dr. Toki, given that Lagos Chamber of Commerce, actually, I would start with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In terms of what we've discussed so far, this topic has been touched on from pillar 1 to, so I won't repeat any of that. But what I did add here was that we also need to be looking at ethics and codes of conduct in associations, business associations. Now, many, many years ago, when I was still a very young person, just starting my business, I joined the chamber, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I remember, for whatever reason, president looking at me and saying, hey, okay, you will come and join the Code of Conduct Drafting Committee, blah, 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 blah. There were 3 of us who were lawyers on that committee and 3 or 4 other business people, odd number. And we did so much research. We came up with this elaborate code of conduct, which it was my job to go and present to council. And there I was, maybe 41 or 42 presenting this thing, and all of them looked at me from age 60 to 90. I was like, you must be joking. You must be joking. Do you know we had to deal, and I'm talking about something like the early 90s or so. So you must be joking, must be joking. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, I mean, since then we've risen above that. We have our code of conduct, we have our ethics committee. But I'm saying that associations in Nigeria are at various levels of development, they're of various types, and that it would help, because the conversation here is almost as if the corruption is in public sector. It's not, it's equal. It is as much in public sector as it is in private sector. We're all the same Nigerians, you know, so we shouldn't deceive ourselves. So we should put as much effort into the private sector. And I think the associations have a very big role to play. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Toki. Are you sure you haven't seen the draft NADS document at this stage? Because you are just speaking from it. So Brittany, over to you.
I just agree to the point that it's both a private and public sector issue. Going back to my point about the tomato paste, this is a private company using laws to act in a way that's not ethical. And so when you have that connection between private sector and powerful individuals with money using laws and using the police force to then carry out their own interest, that's a key issue. And I think maybe that part is missing, and not only participating in coalitions, but also holding each other accountable for doing those practices. And also just to go back to media, I think media plays a very important role in shining a light on this, and there are such strong media institutions here. I meet with journalists, investigative reporters every day who are talking about the work that they do, and they do it in such an ethical and strong way. And I think that we need to recognize and value what they do, and a way to do that is thinking of a human rights perspective. And okay, when the reporters or investigative journalists or what have you are reporting on these issues of corruption and reporting on private sector companies doing these things, are they being protected? Not are they acting in an ethical way, but are they being protected? And they're not. Laws are being used in a way that is impeding them from doing their job. So I think that also needs to be a key focus, is the impracticality of the laws that are existing and media not being protected to do their jobs, to then make it a more business enabling environment for private sector.
Thank you, Brittany. I think what I hear is most of the things, if we are able to strengthen democratic institutions, priority 1, we would solve quite, a good problem of this priority 3. Reactions, comments, please. If we could be brief, please, 1 minute.
I can't promise 1 minute, but I'll do my best. Okay, in reviewing all we've said so far, and even reviewing the 4 points, I've come to a conclusion that we're dealing with the symptoms in all 4 cases. If we're talking about really strengthening democracy and a national agenda, none of the things said here have spoken to the real Nigerians. It's spoken to the elite. Things about that deal with the elite. But what about those people, the vulnerable, downtrodden Nigerians? Their interest is not captured here. What we're supposed to do, what we need to do, if we want to solve the real issues and not just the symptoms, is to craft an agenda that would protect the little guy. In business, for example, very quickly I'll say just as an example for business. In Nigeria, the small business person is criminalized for failure. In our country, the legal system, the judiciary, and the government itself have crafted out laws that criminalize failure. Okay, so if we want to strengthen democracy, to do it from the root, we have to take care of the little guy. And since it's going to be a longer conversation, I'll come back to you with a few ideas on how we can help the little guy and put that little guy in this 4 agenda. Okay, let me take one quick one. Okay, quick one. In our country today, there's a law that's created that allows the little guy to borrow money. The CBN is in the law, so it's not as if we're looking for the laws, which says movable assets registry is created by the CBN, where a person who is a smallholder can borrow money with his assets. And no bank in Nigeria accepts that, even though it's a law. You go to any bank, you're refused access to finance as a small guy. That's one of the first things. And when you are able to get finance in Nigeria, every single microfinance bank, which is supposed to be designed for the little guy, demands a check, post-dated check, unsigned, undated. And you have to enter an agreement allowing them to present that check to the bank, and the police force, EFCC and all groups, will arrest a person for failure. If you miss a payment, you could be arrested and jailed for failure. And the judiciary stands idly by. Where would that kind of person get money to defend himself? The so-called civil defense people that present defenders cannot defend that guy in the police. So people are languishing in jail today because they couldn't make a payment on a debt. And these same people, the same CBN, the same bankers committee, and all these folks sit together and allow small guys become morbidly afraid of taking risks in business. So the economy, see, you have the World Bank, the IFC, and everybody giving advice on the Nigerian economy, but none of them know the Nigerian economy. The government of the day today does not know the Nigerian economy. Why is it so? Because the statistics that are required to make informed decisions do not exist. It's the only country in the world that I know where people who are doing legitimate business, not criminal business, legitimate business, hide what they do from the eyes of the public. So whatever you see as, for example, Nigeria is the largest exporter in the whole of Africa, with the largest export economy. But when you listen to people talking, they'll say, oh, our biggest export commodity is crude oil. Which kind of nonsense crude oil? We are feeding Africa. Our products are going across Africa. I can prove it to you that we're the largest export economy in Africa. But all that is hidden because the people are scared to death of revealing what they actually do in the volumes to government people. So government is losing on revenue, which it can make. There's a whole lot of things I can talk about. But when you're ready, anybody who's ready to understand the real underlying issues on our economy, please come to NACI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask, steering committee says you want to respond to him before I move.
I think like I said earlier, we simply don't have the time to go into these issues in that level of depth. But let me just use the example you gave about this regulation that says everybody should get loans. The fundamental issue is the weakness in which we make policy. You can't wake up and just make a law, and say, oh, anywhere you go, just go and collect loan. They won't ask you for anything. You haven't consulted me. You haven't given me any sort of sovereign guarantee that if that person doesn't pay, I'll get my money back. You simply announce a policy. So I'm just going to ignore you. That's what happens. And the way we make bad policy, I give an example of the Naira design policy. In Bauchi, Jigawa, and Kebbi, less than 8% of the women have bank accounts, less than 8%. In Jigawa, 95% of the women cannot read a single word in any language. You have only 35% of women and 47% of men aged between 15 and 19 who have a bank account. Our economy, 40% of it is informal. So you just wake up and announce you are redesigning the Naira. The mint that's going to print these new notes can only print 200 billion naira per month, compared to a cash need of 2.7 trillion every month. So the real issue really is bad policy. And unfortunately, people don't realize that it is the role of the ministers to make policy. That's why you hear one day, minister will announce one thing, the next day it's been reversed. The day after, another minister will announce another thing, the day after that it's been reversed. Because there's no policy coordination of any sort, there's no consultation, there's no analysis. That's actually the root cause. And so the little person is feeling the effects of it, just like the bigger person is. It's just that the bigger person has more of a shock absorber than the little one. But we all suffer from bad government.
Thank you, Dr. Abba. I think Engineer Okutia, so going back to the response, it's the point is, if we solve the policy issues, how policies are made, we would solve that problem that affects the small guy, because most of these things are policy issues. I think that... Okay, we will come back to that. Yes, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bamidele Frances Onokwe. I'm the National President of Federation of Informal Workers Organization of Nigeria, FA1. I've listened to all the discussions, and I discovered that the informal sector is being marginalized totally, both policy aspects and the National Agenda for Democracy statement. We are 90% in the country. We hold the 90% of the country population. When it comes to election, they will come to us, to our members, pepper sellers, Maggi sellers, tomato sellers, to come and dance with them. At the end of the day, they give them 50 naira Congo of rice. And this narrative we have tried to change in FI1. And when about the CBN, whether microfinance bank, if you go and collect loan from microfinance bank, you pay from your nose. And if you can't pay, they lock you up in the toilet. They call it Bamule Lanta. And it's very, very saddening. So with this, FI1 has tried as much as possible to leverage on a cooperative. We have a multi-purpose cooperative which we have created, and our members have been benefiting from it. And we have a cooperative for mortgage. We have landed property in Abeokuta and Shagamu axis, which our members are benefiting from. But what I'm trying to say is, we are being marginalized, and the narrative has to change, because he who wears his shoe knows where it pinches. When you are talking about the private sector, the public servant, the all sorts of sectors, we are not talking about informal sector. Yes, and it's very painful. And we are the one that is making the money. We are the movers and shakers of the country. It's true. If we say today we are not going to open the market, pepper sellers should not sell, everybody will go on hunger strike. Transporters should not go on, should not work. Everybody will stay at home. So please, we need a narrative to change so that we can include informal sector in whatever policy we are going to make in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your points are noted. Yes, your points are noted. I think even Dr. Kudele from the Ministry of Budget and Planning, who is in charge of the National Development Plan, even stated now that it is noted. So you are sure it will be taken into consideration. Please, 1 minute. I'm running behind time, and I don't want to be the one stopping between you and your tea break, please.
My name is Ibrahim Badam. I'm from Abeokuta, Abeokuta Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. Now, Madam, I just want to say to you that, well, corruption started from inside the office, but it's on your side now. Now, so when we're talking about civil education, Madam said so many things. I think we need those things to start. Let's start from somewhere. When corruption started in Nigeria, it's about changing figures. But just go to the mechanic on the road now. If you look at the way Just Right, ShopRite, and all others are making money, I have to research on them. Why are people not going to the open market? It's because when you get to the open market, something that is being sold, that you're supposed to sell for maybe 10,000, they will start with 50,000. So if you don't know how to bargain, you will end up buying at 30,000. That's corruption. So people prefer to go to ShopRite and all the shopping mall. When I was growing, you don't see people go to ShopRite. When I was growing up, if you want to buy plantain by the side of the road, you see money inside the basket. You can drop your own money there. We met that. We didn't start with corruption, but something happened. And I think what we are trying to address is to redress that system. So let's start from somewhere.
Thank you very much. Andrew, to help you out, when they talk about ShopRite, ShopRite is actually grocery stores in the malls. That now people prefer to go there than to the open market, because if you don't know how to bargain, you actually buy ×2 or ×3 the price from the informal sector, in quotes. Thank you. So I think, sir, please, 1 minute, just one, so we can go to the last part.
Just to add to what several people have said, it's about inclusiveness and engagement and information. These are very, very important things. Yeah, engagement, inclusiveness, and providing information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the points are noted. So the last priority area, which is the land tenure reforms. Dr. Toki, would you mind to start on your reaction on that? Then that is the last priority area. We should do this in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, so 1 minute. This priority area is an area that my father-in-law spent like the last 30 years on. So like the chair of the committee and Dr. Abba are aware, it's very intricate. So I agree with everything and support everything that the PSDF has come up with. However, my caution is you cannot legislate away cultural and traditional practices. You know, I looked at gender. There's nothing in Nigerian law that stops a woman from inheriting land. So it is practices. So the how, you cannot legislate it away. The legislation has what it will do and achieve. But to really get what we want, how do we deal with people's belief systems and their traditional practices? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Toki.
I won't say a lot on policy here because land tenure is not my area. But I will say I do cover community engagement and engagement with traditional leaders. And I think coming from a US perspective, just an appreciation for the importance of culture and tradition here. And so I think this priority area is important. And so I'm glad you all are focusing on this area.
Thank you. Comments? Okay, please let me see how many. Okay, 1, 2, any other person, so we can do this in 2 minutes. Thank you.
1 minute, right? Cool. I'm notorious, aren't I? Okay, quick one. When it comes to, this is a very touchy area for me, in particular, this land matter. Because, as you say, you want to strengthen democracy, okay? Look, because we learn from anywhere in the world. The first thing you look at is, okay, is there a system in place where the little guy can finally think about owning a home, owning land, being able to have a portion of a property? Because if you want to strengthen democracy, first of all, you want to make the people have some kind of home. And there are so many examples across the world where you have projects in the US, you have housing estates in Europe that dedicate things that would have a small room for the little guy. 95% of people in Lagos are tenants. 95% are tenants. At least 85%, 90% in Abuja and most urban cities are tenants with no hope of home ownership. Many have been 20-year tenants. So beyond just the reforms on the land, reforms on the laws that enable a home. For example, in Europe anywhere, a house can be built, a tiny corner room in that house can become a mortgage asset. So dealing with assets that allow the poor, the little guy, to have a future in a home is something I'd like to discuss later. But that's part of what you use to strengthen democracy, getting shelter for the little guy.
Thank you. Sir, you could go ahead.
All right, thank you. My name is Aki Okpatola. I'm the president for the International Real Estate Federation, Nigerian chapter. So this is also a very touchy issue for me. And I've gone through the policy goals guidelines. I think it's robust, but I would just like to lay emphasis on things like the monitoring, evaluation, and benchmarking. And I say this because there's a very popular PwC report that is on social media that speaks about we taking 90% of the country out of poverty just using debt capital. So we have huge debt capital in the country. If we can get this land reform correct, it will take us a very, very long way. If we want to also benchmark, and I would like to see things like benchmarking under these goal guidelines, because a country like Rwanda has almost all their own lands, yes, fully digitalized. I noticed that I did see digitalizing the land registry across, but that benchmarking, monitoring, and evaluation is really key. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, Dr. Brimo, you're going to be the last person I will take.
Yeah, I think that we should also look at how do we use land to generate liquidity for the economy. Tokenization, I mean, it's something that we should be looking at. I mean, you were talking about small people. You don't have to own a whole house, but you own a portion of a house. So, I mean, we can use technology to drive this, and that's why technology for us is important in every aspect. We've been talking about how we use technology to drive these things, to make life easy and to generate wealth.
Sorry, thank you very much for that. We're running behind time. Please, comments can come later on. Apologies for this. I want to ask a question. Given all the, all the input feedback, with incorporating these things in the NADS, because part of the aim of this meeting is validation. Would we agree that incorporating all this into the NADS makes it a comprehensive document for us? More comprehensive document. Do we all agree to that? Incorporating our feedback? Yes. Incorporating our feedback to this makes it a more comprehensive document? Okay. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. So the ayes have it. Thank you all very much. No, I'm an autocrat. I'm not going to ask for the nays. Thank you very much for this. It was a very useful exercise because this is the major thing of today's activity. And then the next thing on our agenda, because one of the things we're looking at with the NADS is not for it to be an end in itself, but seeing how we can incorporate it when it comes to government. And one of the places we have seen is the National Development Plan, which rests with the Federal Ministry of Budget and Planning. Fortunately, as in good time, it's actually good timing for us because the NDP actually runs 2021 to 2025. Yes, so it ends next year. So the government is actually looking at, having the next NDP, which for us, like I said, good timing. It makes us to be able to actually work with the Ministry of Budget and Planning to see how our recommendations can feature in the NDP, which is the National Development Plan. With us here today, who would actually be taking us on the present NDP, a review of it, as well as looking at, how we can work towards the next one, is the Director of Projects and Plans, which is Dr. Kenneth Kwejili. So he's in charge of the National Development Plan, and we thought it would be a good thing for him to be here today to actually speak to us on the past plan and see ways in which we can move forward. Dr. Kwejili, please, over to you for your presentation, please.
I can stay here? Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How many minutes do I have? I should have 3 hours.
No. So we'll give you 7 minutes for presentation, then 8 minutes for questions and answers.
All right, I will take 5 minutes for presentation and 20 minutes for question and answers. Right, thank you. She just introduced me, and that's fine. Let me run very fast. She has just told you that we had the National Development Plan, and you are all Nigerians. I heard everything that you are all saying. Corruption in public, corruption in private, and corruption everywhere. Corruption. Yes. The reason for that is because, including the private public, you don't obey your plans. Countries that have developed make use of their plans. And today, all of us are running to China here and there to pick this. In China, if you don't obey your plan, you are executed. I had a presentation I made with Chinese government. About 5 ministers were there. And they said, oh, you had a good plan in Nigeria, but why? I said, well, we're having challenges. They said, no, in China, if you deviate, the easiest way to go to grave, to meet your great parents, is to deviate from the plan. But we don't have it here. So good. Please, just scroll up. So the next slide, yeah, this is the outline. We don't need to spend time there. Your move. Why did we, in the first instance, what was the situation? What was the reason that we had to prepare our plans? Developing the plans, I heard Madam saying that she was in service for 10 years, and my brother on my side said he was a DG somewhere, and his face looked like a face that I've met. Maybe when he was the DG, maybe I had come to ask for some shoe and nothing. But there's something he said that impressed me. So, Nigeria, we had, I don't think I need this. People can read it later. This is just introduction part of it. Let me just hear. You see, this slide tells us of what was going on, the challenges. You can see it. There was fragile economy. There was pervasive insecurity. There was low productivity, even for the private sector. So when you have this kind of high incidence of poverty and deindustrialization, what do? Countries that have developed, they have to rethink. They go back to the drawing board to do something. And that was why we went back to come up with a plan. To the next slide, please. And so what did the plan? What were the objectives? What were those in that plan, 2021 to 2025, wanted to achieve? There were just 4 key things. One is to lay a solid foundation for concentric diversification of the economy. The economy is diversified, but underline concentric diversification. What are we saying? We want to see that when you have cocoa, you can use it to produce something and something before you export, so you add value. And when you do so, the private sector can create jobs. Government don't create jobs. The job creation is in the hand. But the only what government does is to provide you the enabling environment, and so on. So what will government do to provide you enabling is to create critical fiscal infrastructure. That is the thing the plan was talking about. And also, to what we do, even if government don't provide you good security, you will not be able. So that was why one of the objectives of that plan was to ensure that there's security. And finally, the human being, human capital development. Without human, what is the plan? In fact, what is this building for? Is it not because of human that it was constructed? You in the private sector, yes, I heard someone say the private sector don't care about that because they're after what? Profit. It's to maximize profit. That is what I studied in my economics, and that is what it is. So, but for public sector, somebody also said, I think Madam was saying, or one of them was saying that there's difference. Okay, my brother here. There is difference between the private sector and public sector. Private sector will be thinking of tribe. In fact, I made a presentation and somebody asked me, why did government choose to put refinery in Kaduna? Whereas in the simple economics 101, we tell you that industries are sited at the source, closer to raw materials. But I told him there was what I've called political economy. You don't have economy political. What drives the economy is politics. So political economy. Have you ever heard economic politica? If you do it, that is your own, you form it. But what is on ground is political economy. So politics move, economy move. Good. So this is and then we have enablers. Just move, because I have 2 minutes, I'm timing myself. So that plan has 4 pillars on which it stands. Number one of it, we have a very good policy trust. Also, we have a very strong, realistic macroeconomic framework. Even the private sector. You come to me, when you come to Abuja, I take you through. But we have a very strong government, public sector, somebody said so. Public sector, we'll get there. Public sector challenge. It's not that we don't know, but because we are limited by infrastructure. When I mean infrastructure, ICT knowledge, training, and so on and so forth. Those are some of the things that keep us down. We have in this plan what we call prioritized, sequenced programs and projects, which all the sectoral ministries have to develop in order, because when you do a plan is just theory, policy, but you need to turn that plan document into practice, practical. That is where you have programs and projects. In this particular plan, we have about 16,156 programs and projects that were admitted into the plan. And the plan was looking at economy growing at an average of 5% per annum. Annual growth of 5% GDP growth. And how do you grow? You grow by putting programs and infrastructure in place. That's how the economy can run. And then, so that you, the private sector, which is also done in the presentation, can also participate. Even the NGOs, the civil society organization, a robust M&E framework is part of it. Run. So, I don't need to read it, but I mentioned that we have solid policy trust. These are the policy talks, employment generation, support my brother, who is here, because he just told me that he's the president of MSME, isn't he? So you can see that government even has in mind to make sure that they provide enabling environment for MSMEs to move up. Private sector to also to encourage private sectors to invest, attract even FDIs, and so on. Move, these places, they can read it. Just move on. Okay, go back to that place. You can see, we talk about diversify revenue base and increase the ratio of tax to GDP. So those of you in Lagos crying tax, I will tell you as we are moving why it is so. Move, especially the private sector. Move to the next one. So that plan document we had, I don't know, it's just too short for me, but I think you are going to create we invite them to Abuja where we take you through the plan so that when you are talking in Lagos, we will tell you that Abuja is doing the right thing. But here in Lagos, we are talking because you are closer to the ocean. Now, so the structure, these are the structure. The structure, it had about 7 structures, 7 parts. And this is the part, but let me deal with the one we always like to talk to you about, economic growth and development. You know the difference between economic growth and development. When you talk economic growth, you are talking of growth in GDP, and you know that your GDP, how it is measured, including the house boy and house girl that is, which he doesn't pay. And you pay them a low salary. You pay them. You pay them, Chineke, minimum wage. We'll talk that after, and so on. So these are the 7 areas. But you can see that there's something created. Number 6 there. You talk about what? Regional development. Recently, you see that government has created a ministry or renamed a ministry to address regional development. So but these are the areas. When you look at that plan document, I won't mention the chapters and page where it is. Move fast, because I know she's looking at my time. Move, fast. You add more minutes because you were holding me. But when you look at that plan, you know, government is on your behalf. So it's looking at the priority areas. Government knows where it's touching you, because the government is not a spirit now. It's a human being. In fact, when she's given a ministerial position, all her village people will go to a place. So you are telling me the minister should not be corrupt. All her village people will come and line up in the office. So what do you want her to do? You are representing us. It's a difficult thing. Somebody said, okay, he's same him. And I love him. When he was talking, I nodded my head. Democracy don't bring development. Leave it. I walk with and I stand my ground. What brings, in fact, Nigeria movement, growth, infrastructure, even we had it more in the military regime than now. So it is not a question of what we do. We need committed, disciplined leaders to make Nigeria move. So now that plan is crafted for a total resources financing structure is that their plan, the cost of that plan we produce is about 300. Just bring, because I needed to see it. I think it's the next one. Financing the plan. Okay, good. Don't worry. I've seen where I'm talking to. Good, thank you. No, there's a place you have the financing the plan. You see, in order to finance the plan has a total of 390-something trillion. Out of that amount, private sector is we're expecting that private sector investment will be about 85.7% of that cost, which is about 290-something trillion. Whereas the public sector, made up of federal, state, and local government, it's just 14.3%. So that is to say that this plan that is ongoing is purely for private sector. Government want to depend on private sector to liberalize, to free the economy and put it in the hand of private sector to drive. But you ask me, what did government do for you to be able to drive it? I will tell you. Now, for government to be able to raise its own component of the resources, the plan said government should broaden tax base. And also, it has the capacity of the private sector to pay the tax. I know you will say so. Good. So for part of it, so in order to strengthen you, government also have what we call a financing vehicle that government has to create. And also, you will be crying, loan. Even this moment they're doing budgets, so a lot of private sector will shout, I will hear you say, they don't start again, loan. Yes. I'm an economist to the core. There is nothing wrong with two things that people always kick against. Loans and subsidy. There is nothing wrong. They are all economic tools for macroeconomic management. What is only wrong is when people like Joy decide to mismanage it. That's only wrong. If I mismanage, isn't it? If you are in place and you mismanage it, you mismanage the subsidy, it becomes a problem. Even the US, even the IMF, their countries, they have subsidies. My brother, from America or where? In America, you have subsidies. So why then do they tell Nigerians not to have subsidy? Why will IMF not say so? But the reason they say so is because they don't trust the way we manage it. Otherwise, not that they say that it's wrong. So those are the challenges. So government, you talk about subsidy, you talk about government in that plan indicating that there's going to be a very drastic measure to follow up with addressing the inefficiencies. Because somebody said in the course of employing workers, it's true. I came into the service without knowing anybody. Immediately I submitted my results, my application. They passed the thing straight to the directors of macroeconomic analysis department. He said, this person must be here. I don't know. And my application that was written, there was no phone, nothing. I stayed in Lagos. I was tracking all these areas, nothing. I went back to a village. So no phone to call me. Actually, I had wanted to work in the bank. That was my interest. So I was looking for bank, Zenith Bank, and so on. And the day I went to the bank, I saw Jim over here. He said, it was shining. See, today, that head is still shining like that. As MD, when he interviewed me, but I didn't know that where God wants me to be is to be where I am. That's why I'm speaking to you today. Because if I were in that bank, I would speak to you. Because Madame said she wouldn't employ bankers. Because they will raise good family. Because they always they will have money, but they don't have time to raise their children. You see? So good. So these are the things. Move to the last 2 pages. Because I need to, because she's already seeing me. So Renewed Hope Agenda was not used as a strategy. So because some of you will say, government has a plan, but they are talking Renewed Hope Agenda. You know what the Renewed Hope Agenda doing is part of the strategies. We use it as another strategy to implement a plan. That is why currently what we are doing is to make sure that the part that the Renewed Hope Agenda is doing that is not in alignment with the plan. So we now bring it back to make sure that it's aligned with the plan. And you know that this plan we're talking about is expiring by next year. And that budget, the last budget of it is what is the process we are. So what the ministry is currently doing is to now begin to prepare the plan to go, and therefore to come up with areas that we can begin to look at for the next plan. And so government also produced what we call Nigeria Agenda 2050. That Nigeria Agenda 2050 is to be implemented over a 6 plans, each of 5-year duration. We have just been running away with the first one. So the second series of it is the 26 to 2030. So without me even saying it here, we should begin to say, even you as private sector, oh, good, 2030, remember Sustainable Development Goal. So we should also be saying that, so I think government should have to prioritize to make sure that we do that. And then move, because she's standing and she's on my neck now. When we are talking Nigeria, you don't give me 10 minutes to talk Nigeria, unless you don't want. So now, come to the slide before this. There's something I want to look at there. Good. So we're talking about a successor plan. That successor plan, I say 2026 to 2030. What should we be looking at? We have not really worked, finalize it, but these are some of the things we would like to look at. You can see it. The plan, we talk of GDP, we talk of alignment of monetary policies, we talk about focusing on human capital, fiscal infrastructure, addressing and pursuing attainment of SDGs, and then prioritizing AU agenda. These things, we need to look at it, and then MSM development, because we always like and to ensure that and they will be buying their products and they'll be giving them money. So MSMEs and so on, informal sector, we want to reduce it at all costs by upgrading you. Why will you continue to remain informal? Are they afraid to become formal? We have to formalize them. So to formalize them, we make sure that we provide enabling environment so that she can, instead of employing 3 people, she can employ 20, 50, and so on and so forth. Good. So I think move. So now, before we do that plan, there are certain things we need you. Now, you have to send the attendants here to me. You can't be in Lagos and be talking. We will bring you to Abuja to join us to do plan. So I'm going to fix all of you in different technical working groups so that you know what I feel. Just send me the list. You hear? So everybody here will be, including American. So what we need you to do is that as we are going to into this new plan, one of the challenges we face that in the plan that we are doing, a lot of people don't know about the plan. We saw that is an error from our own side. We have acknowledged that. But this time, as we are going to start this one, Madam, you are number 1. Sensitization of the public. I will come to Lagos. You will do roadshow with me. We will make sure you are part and parcel of this process. We want you to take responsibility. We want it to become your own. Not government. Some people will be losing when Morgan was in government. People will see him as government. No, government is you and me. Leave it. You have a say. So, we will be asking for technical support. I've told Joy, I will assign a technical group to this. What's the name of where's the organization? Where's your madam? Let me tell her now. You will sponsor people to China, US, and so on and so forth with your organization. Mobilize fund. So that we want people, we are talking about capacity. We want people to be part and parcel of it. And let me say, we say minimum wage is what? 70,000. Let us be honest, we are open. What can 70,000? In fact, the food I ate yesterday is more than 70,000 naira in that hotel. So what can that thing serve? Nothing. It didn't reach me. It didn't reach anywhere. You take this water. Imagine this water, how much? And I needed to, because the doctor said I should be drinking water very well. Only 1 bottle of water. In fact, now wow. So we need capacity building for planners. That's what I mean. The last slide. Going to the but when we have done the plan, what will you help us to do? We want everybody here, all your organizations, whether media, wherever, whatever you are, we want you to be part and parcel of it. We need to communicate our product. One of the greatest challenges we have, even there was this American gave us a chance to import local products, AGOA. Did we utilize it? We did not. And the reason is because the technology, even we are not competitive, the product is not competitive because the quality. So we need you to sell, market us, so that we can, We also need, when we develop the plan, a lot of you didn't know about the plan because nobody could assist, even the media. I know they accuse them, and you are right. I don't want to talk that now. But the issue is this. You need to help to serialize this. Even somebody was talking about converting the plan or translating it to local languages and so on and so forth. Even bringing it in the school's curriculum and system and so on. So we need to see how we can deepen and grow our economy and align donors. One of the greatest challenges Nigeria, I was telling him when he was saying, donors will employ SAs. All these SAs we are all talking about, either funded by, government don't fund SAs. It's funded by developing partner donors. They are looking for who the job for so that they claim they have supported a government and then the money, But we want you, the donors, support the technocrat himself. I appreciate you, sir. God bless you. There's a statement. You said you don't even accept those TAs, SAs, whatever they call them, to come to you. They have to go through the departments. These days, I wish they would bring you back to government. Your wife was sponsoring. sorry. So, these days, if they give this my sister that's sitting there, SA, imagine enter the office. Even me, who is a chief, who is even big boss, will begin to answer as Ama. Because she will come and harass me, say, Minister, I want this. You do this, even with all my big manity. So, but what he has done is to say, you people go to the department. We will teach you. There are a lot of things we know that you don't know after we attended the same university. And some of us even did better than you. Some of us came out with first class, but we find ourselves in public sector. And then you say because you are engaged, no, some of us are superior to you. But it's so. So, ladies and gentlemen, I take that last slide. Let me say thank you to them. You are pushing me. Okay, thank you. You have my slide. Ask me a question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwejili. I don't know. I think that for us to manage time effectively, because that has gone quite on, we would kind of look at after the session here. Dr. Kwejili will be around to answer questions, so we can interact with him afterwards. But one good thing that we have said here, which the PSDF has actually looked at working with the Ministry of Budget and Planning to ensure the next plan, we're a part of it. And what he has complained about, say we stay aloof of it, no. But as PSDF, part of the things we keep negotiating with them is we have to be a part of the development of the plan and everything. So private sector would have its input as well and understand, the National Development Plan. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Kwejili. I will now hand over to Mrs. Lola Adekanye, who would give the remarks on behalf of PSDF, as well as speaking on the milestones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. And if you will all permit me or, agree with me, Joy has done a terrific job moderating. And also in the next 30 seconds, I just want all of us to take a minute to take in and enjoy the comedic way with which Dr. Kwejili presented very complex but very important information to us. So Dr. Kwejili, thank you very much for that. So about the food again, the 70,000 naira, okay.
Does it sound like he lacks capacity?
Absolutely not.
Do you think he's the only one?
Absolutely not.
That's all. Thank you.
But I think that's an important point that Dr. Joe, you're making without saying much. And that brings me to the first point in my response. But first of all, I want to thank and appreciate all PSDF members and the steering committee. I just want to really note that this is all volunteer time that you're putting into this. And it's a bigger goal than we all can imagine that we're trying to achieve. And, Dr. Kwejili's presentation gives you a sense of how broad this is. So thank you very much for your hard work. Let me start with talking about why the NADS particularly, because the NDP is a plan, it's a robust, comprehensive plan, it's brilliant. And what makes the NADS very important for the PSDF is the focus on democracy. And what is the relevance? It's been said in this room, and I think most people would agree, because history shows that democracy does not necessarily result in economic development. Maybe over time, that's something would leave for researchers to talk to us about a bit more. But one thing that it does is it helps build national cohesion, which I saw in the presentation. It helps build and helps ensure social cohesion in countries. And, if I were to simplify national cohesion, it's that thing that, when the steering committee members were talking about, they talked about trust. And everybody here talked about corruption, trust in private sector, trust in public sector, and the breakdown of trust is corruption in all its different forms. And like Madam Toki said, we can't legislate away certain things like corruption. Neither can we finance away the motive to be corrupt. But one thing that can help when we try to do legislation to prevent corruption, and we try to improve minimum wage, and we try to do all of those financial interventions to limit the motives and the need or opportunity for corruption, would be the national cohesion we build, where every Nigerian feels like I am properly represented by somebody who cares. All of what you presented on the NDP that you didn't get a chance to communicate effectively, it's that kind of communication, cohesive collaboration in building the NDP that restores trust. And so that's what the NADS is about. It's not focusing on the economic side as much, but more on the national cohesion side of things. And that's not to say the economic side is not important. Prosperity is important, but without national cohesion, we break down all the good plans that we have, these good plans break down because there's no trust to implement them. So that's why the NADS comes from a very strong democracy perspective. So I want to say three things in response to what all the comments that we've heard today. All of them will be taken into the NADS, but I want to say three things that I've noted that the PSDF would think about as we go back and strategize about what happens next. Because to be honest, this is the easy part. As hard as it was, putting together the plan is the easy part. Now benchmarking, now implementing, now setting milestones, that's the harder part. And also coordinating the members that will grow beyond the 13 or 18 members that are in the PSDF. So the first thing we'll take away to the PSDF is, by looking at this, I think we have been more reactive than proactive in thinking about the guideposts. And so we will be more proactive in thinking about the guideposts. I'll give you an example of one of the ways that we will be more proactive. Madame here talked about informal sector. And I think that there are other stakeholder groups that are peculiar to Nigeria, where at Nigeria's current development phase, that we forget, because a lot of times our policy goals and our drivers are driven by maybe the donor partners that we're working with and things like that. But PSDF's goal and CIPE's way of working is partners are driving and leading the conversations in countries. And so we'll become more proactive about thinking about what is that future we're looking to build, what are partners looking to build in the future for Nigeria in terms of national cohesion. And that's what will drive us more than the buzzwords about what we think democracy or national cohesion should look like for Nigeria. And so coming to milestones, what's next, what is coming? I think the first thing is, now that the NADS in a few weeks, the PSDF team, Joy and the team, will be in Abuja meeting with the other stakeholder groups members. So it'd be great to have Dr. Kujeli there. I imagine it'd be more fun because they won't be near the water. The civil society, media, academia, and the rest will be there. And so that would be the second validation session. And then after that, the finalized NADS we put together. But after that, the first thing we need to do is solidify these guideposts. And the first comment Brittany made about the how, the when, and all that, the implementation roadmap, those guideposts will help every organization that would drive those when and how for implementing the different parts. Because the NADS is really broad, really high level. The how and the when would have to be, drilled down further into the specific milestones that each organizations will be driving. And how will that be figured out? And so Joy and I were talking about it this morning. There will be champions for each priority area. But what we'll have would be clusters of champions within PSDF and beyond. So for instance, EIE that Madam Toki talked about, I have another example here. Step Up. If you don't know Step Up, they do really terrific job, a really good job of writing beautiful stories to communicate ethics, integrity, and the like. So there are a few books here that CIPE would leave here for folks to pick up. Definitely enjoy them. If you're from the media, there's one here called Tosin's Story. If you work in the election space, Halima's Votes, they're really, really good ways of communicating around civic education. But this is just an example. Many partners in PSDF are already working on very, very important, milestones that feed into this and feed into the NDP. And so you will all be part of the champions, the cluster. So when Dr. Kujali is doing a roadshow and is relevant to your cluster, please be part of that. Please contribute at the point when the NDP is being developed. It's more helpful that way than to do it after. So 2 keywords. If you don't remember anything I said, just remember that clusters of champions coming out of the PSDF. Definitely nominate yourself. Joy is an autocrat. If you don't, she will volunteer you or volunteer you. And we would really appreciate that you participate. And then secondly and finally, we will solidify these guideposts under each strategic priority area. I know the steering committee already knows that's work for them, but we already know that they are more than able for the task. So we'll solidify that and make that available for the NDP. Finally, thank you all very much. Thanks to our convening partner, ABC, for a terrific job managing the secretariat and all the other invisible, people behind the scenes. Thank you all for your really hard work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adekanye. I will now hand over the phone to Mrs. Olele, who is my boss and who makes me to be standing here, except I should go outside. So, over to you.
Well, I'm sure you know it's a joke. We don't work that way. But quite frankly, I think Lola said everything. I just think that beyond what we usually say, which is that we don't want this to be a prescriptive project. It's also going to be a proactive project. And I see this in a way. I see a threefold chord where you have the people, the government, but then, at the heart of everything is, democracy. And democracy, not that it necessarily drives economic growth, but it creates a fecund, environment that energizes different things, including the economy of the country. And that is, again, one of the very important reasons why we should be talking about this. And so I am very excited that we are moving towards the next phase, understanding, how we need to run with those areas of what I would probably call building OACs of excellence in some of these areas, and building these groups that can further enhance the work that we're doing. So I would not stand between us and lunch. I thank everyone again, and I thank Andrew for making our time to come down this way, and for my fantastic partners, our steering committee members, and every other person, members, and everyone here who made time to come here. Thank you. And great job, Joy.
Thank you very much, all. I think we have come to the end of this session. There will still be more engagements with everyone here, because what we've heard is that the work just started. It hasn't ended.